Farming, it looks amazing. It's a business that you want to start. Well, lucky you, because today it's advice for starting a market farm. Coming up here on Modern Grower. Hello, growers. I'm Diego, D-I-E-G-O. I represent Modern Grower. That's my company. We sell tools, supplies, and seeds to market farmers. And for the past 10 plus years, I've interviewed hundreds and hundreds of farmers, and I'm sharing everything that I've learned along my journey with you to make your journey into farming a little bit easier, a little bit more profitable, and hopefully more productive. A lot of people want to get into market farming. They love the idea of it. Trapped in a cubicle and think, wow, it would be amazing to go out there, get back to the land and become a market farmer. But what would it take to do that? I wish somebody could give me some advice. Well, I'm going to give you advice. And this isn't not just my advice. This is advice of me distilling down what I've learned from talking to literally hundreds of farmers over the past decade. If you don't believe what I'm saying or want a second opinion, listen to my podcast, Farm Small, Farm Smart, and you can hear firsthand from those farmers. But I'm trying to take it all and distill it down into one little drop that's easily digestible for you. This is the wellness shot of getting into market farming. And I've arranged this strategically for your convenience into start to finish, to make it easy to back out at any point, to spend as little money as possible along the way. This isn't a sales video. I'm not encouraging you to buy anything. There's no, at the end of the video, buy my $1,000 course and I'll show you how to start a market farm and get rich in 24 hours. None of that. This is real advice. Spend as little money as possible, get as much experience as possible, find out if you like it, and yet be able to step away, back out at any point. That's what we want. Could even apply these principles to any other business if you don't want to start a farm. Step one, you're going to practice. If you have access to some land, a community garden, a neighbor, a church, a backyard, you're going to start growing. You're going to start growing, though, as though you're a market farmer. You're going to plant on 30-inch beds. You're going to count your yields. You're going to harvest. You're going to weigh stuff. You're going to wash it. You're just going to get practice growing. Do you like doing this? Do you like going through the process? Do you like doing it all year? Some people love it in the spring when it's nice and cool. They hate it in the summer when it's hot and humid. And you're going to do this with as little tools as possible. You don't need to buy fancy stuff. You're just going to get by, bootstrap it. With what you have, with what you can borrow, maybe with what you can buy secondhand. We're not spending a lot of money. We're just going to practice. We are talking about practice, Alan Iverson here. It's learning how to grow, but not as a gardener, as a market gardener. That's the difference. We're going to select crops we think we could sell in our area. We're going to sell crops we think would grow in area. This isn't stuff we like to eat. This is stuff we think we could sell. If we want to eat it, that's a bonus. And we're going to run it as though it was a farm. Again, successions, weeding. What comes next? I plant one crop. I need to be thinking, what comes next in that bed when I harvest it out? You can give this stuff away. How good is it? Just getting used to it. Do you like doing this? That's what you're trying to figure out in step one. And you're doing it as though you're a market farmer, but you're practicing. Step number 2, you're going to volunteer at a farm. You're going to see the ins and outs of what a professional operation looks like. While you can practice on your own, you can't practice as well as somebody who's running it as a business. Because when you run it as a business, there's more pressure, there's actual costs, you're making decisions based on the actual market. When you practice, you can go as though you're running a business, but You're just making assumptions. So going to an actual farm that's in business, hopefully one that's been in business for a fair bit of time, you're going to see how are they doing things? What is life like there? Would I want to follow in their footsteps? Would I want to work on this farm? Would I want to run a similar farm? And you're like, oh, this is nothing like I thought it was like. It's meeting the celebrity or the childhood hero that you always had. You're like, wow, I idolize them. Hulk Hogan. And then I met him and I'm like, I don't like the Hulkster at all. He's telling me to take vitamins and he's taking steroids and making sex videos. I love you, Hulk. I've never actually met Hulk, so that's not my childhood hero. Just an example. When you volunteer there, you're going to volunteer throughout a year because throughout a year is going to be a common theme in this. We're not cherry picking the season to be the most comfortable. Farming's hard. It stinks at certain times of the year. The weather can be intolerable for some people. If you're coming out of a cubicle, you might not have seen, 1 p.m. outside in your area in the last 5 years because every day at 1 p.m. you're in your cubicle playing solitaire, or I guess people don't do that. You're watching YouTube. What is 1 p.m. in my area actually like? Oh my God, I'm outside in Dallas at 1 p.m. in July. I've never been out here before. It's freaking hot. And you're going to do it throughout the year to see the changing seasons, to see the changing weather, to see how there's an ebb and flow throughout the year because day lengths change, weather changes. That all affects farming techniques. And if you don't like what you're doing, you can quit and walk away. I volunteered, haven't spent any money, not my farm, not my business, but I got some experience. I learned it, and I learned if I liked it. Step number 3, you're going to take a live in-person workshop to get a more comprehensive overview of what doing this is actually like. Well, having the chance to ask an instructor questions, you can also mingle with other people. There's probably a mix of people who are looking to start up their farm and also a mix of people who are maybe deeper into it or a few years into it. So you can learn a lot from the audience. I think in-person wins over online because I think it's more of a commitment to travel somewhere and go and you're face to face with people and you can really decide, is this for me? I commit to a whole weekend. It's an exploratory journey, a walkabout into farming. Do I want to do this? A lot of the instructors that do this are really knowledgeable. I've done a bunch of them in the past myself with Farmer Darby Simpson when we had the Grass Fed Life podcast. We talked to a lot of people who are looking at getting into livestock farming. One amazing thing that came out of that workshop was a lot of people went on to start livestock farms. A lot of people didn't. That was the good thing about the workshop. It was a weed out. Some people realized like, ugh, not for me. I don't want to do this. So I think there is a lot of benefit to doing it. The cost that you invest into the workshop, the travel money that you invest into the workshop makes the workshop mandatory. It's really easy to sign up for something online and be like, oh, I'm gonna do this course. But the statistics of people taking online courses are ridiculously low. It's like 5% of the people actually take the course who buy it. At least if you're paying to travel there, you're going to get on the plane. So it makes it a little bit mandatory. If you don't like what you're doing, walk away. Okay? Now we've just spent a little money on education. I'm not selling you a course. Go find a good course out there. But it's still better than jumping into a farm from day one, buying all this equipment, spending all this money, taking a loan, quitting your job, and realizing you're hating it. So we're 3 steps in. We're building confidence. We're building experience. We're seeing if we like it. We're learning without that much financial commitment. Step number 4, this is the most recommended thing from every farmer who I've ever interviewed. Work on a farm for at least a year. Everybody says that. Why? When you work on a farm at a year, you get to see a farm throughout a full farm season. You get to see how a business works. You get to learn all the ins and outs. You get full exposure to it. You'll learn a ton, way easier than you trying to go start this blind. You're going to see, how does somebody else do this? What do I like? What do I not like about what they're doing? What's working? What's not? What makes them successful? You're there all the time. One other thing you're going to find out for yourself, and I sent this out to my email list and some people sent feedback, was it gives you a bearing on your physical fitness. If you're like cubicle hippo who, sucking down your drink and like eating whatever people eat in cubicles, Chipotle and chips, you might not be the most physically fit. Like, let's face it, Americans are fat. We don't like to move around. We have escalators and stuff like that. And we walk to the car and that's plenty. Then we like to watch Netflix. Well, farming's hard work, physically and mentally. You're in the elements. You're bending over a lot. Oh my God, I gotta bend over. So hard. You're moving hard stuff. It's dirty, all that stuff. By working at a farm for a full season, you see if you can physically handle the actual workload. Because you might be fully mentally behind it, but you might be like, my body ain't cut out for this. I can't do it. So work at a farm. The great part about this is you don't spend money. You might have to quit your job, but you get paid. Don't volunteer, don't woof or something like that. Find a job to go get paid and find a good farm. There's a lot of farms out there that will hire people. Eric Schultz at Steadfast Farm hires all sorts of people who go on to start their own farm. And he always looks for quality workers and you get paid, you learn a lot, and maybe you move on. Step number 5. This can be done from day one. It's step number 5 in the process, but this could be like 1B. Start paying off bad debt from day one. If a lot of people are not financially responsible, if you're going to start a business, you need to get financially responsible really quick. This is like you're 17, you're at home with your brothers and your sisters, you got your mom, your dad dies. I got to grow up real quick to help the family survive. Well, we're starting a business. You got to grow up real quick financially if your life is a mess. You want to start taking care of debt ASAP when you go to start a business. You don't want to be starting a business with debt on the books because it's already going to be a lot of pressure financially when you start a business. So clean up all your personal debt, especially bad debt. I'm not talking like mortgage or something like that. Bad debt, credit card debt, things like that. Get it off the books as soon as you can because you ideally want to build up a savings account, a buffer. When you start a farm, you're going to need some money to put into the business, but let's take care of that debt because interest don't sleep. Interest only goes up. Interest is the business you want to be in, to be honest. You want to be charging interest on loans. That's how you make money, right? That's why the credit card companies do it. Smart business to be in because that interest clock keeps running. So you got to get off that clock. Start paying off your debt. Again, doesn't cost you anything, only helps you financially. Step number 6 ties into this. You can start doing this from day 1, too. Start building a savings and buffer fund. You're trying to prepare yourself if you're going to decide to start a business. So many people who think they're going to start a business, they focus on one cost. What is it? How much is it going to cost to start the business? I need to buy this equipment, this equipment, this equipment, this equipment, these supplies. That's going to cost me X. What did you forget about all that in that whole equation? How are you gonna live, right? If you quit your job to start a business, you don't just need the money to start a business, you need the money to live. Maybe you have a partner who supports you. Sugar daddy, sugar mama, that's amazing. Love my mama. My wife, mama, not my mom. I love my mom too. Anyway, maybe you have a partner who can help support the lifestyle, but you should be thinking about what am I going to do if my income, either solo or family, takes a setback during starting up a business? I should have a savings buffer. Hey, even if you don't start the farm business, having savings is never a bad thing. That's a win. Step number 7. You've been practicing on your own farm, your mini farm that's just a tester. You're going to sell something that you grow. Most people have never sold anything in their life. They're scared of it. They're scared to talk to people. They're scared to approach people about selling. They're nervous. They don't want to do it. You're going to sell something that you grew to somebody. You're going to get the experience of saying, here's what I have. Will you buy it? See what people think. Get a feel for pricing. Doesn't have to be anything fancy. Sell it to people at your church. Sell it to people at your work. Sell it to your neighbors. Put a stand up in an honor system stand, something like that. Go to a once a month farmer's market and you're selling out of your little practice farm. But sell something to say, I could see myself doing this as a business. It makes it that much more real. Doesn't cost you a thing and only brings money in, which is a good thing. Step number 8, you're going to start thinking about where you can farm. What land do I have access to? How much am I going to need? I have a video on how much land you might need and previous in this series. We'll start looking, where could I get access to that? Maybe I'm lucky and I live on it. Maybe I'm lucky and I own it. Maybe somebody in my family has it. Maybe somebody in my church has it. Somebody in my neighborhood. But where can I start getting land if I want to do this? So I'm preparing ahead. I can start evaluating options. I can see what's out there in the market. Is all the land terrible? Is there just a ton of land and I have, the pick of the litter? Or is it, there's nothing to choose from and I have that rock pile out there to try and grow on? So what's that going to look like for you? Is it going to cost you a lot? Is it going to cost you a little? That's going to help with planning later on. You're not buying anything. You're just doing research. Step number 9, figure out when you can farm. When, and this doesn't mean when am I going to start farming, but when could I farm around my schedule? Let's zoom out a little bit. There's many contexts of how this can be viewed depending on who's watching this. If you're a single person that has no commitment to a partner or family, lucky you make your own schedule, doesn't matter. Okay? You can farm 24/7 tomorrow. You just ask yourself, can I farm? Yes, you can. Go for it. If it was me, I'm in a very different situation. I'm in my 40s. I have 3 kids. I have a wife. I have financial commitments. If I'm going to I'm filming right now. If I'm going to farm, I need to figure out when can I do that around the rest of my family's schedule. Coordinate with my wife. So we have kids, when can she watch the kids so I can farm? And maybe that means I have to farm certain hours a day and certain days of the week. Does that leave me enough time to actually farm? Maybe I have to work part-time at another job to sustain our lifestyle while I start the farm. Does that leave me enough hours left in the week to actually dedicate to the business? To make the business successful, you might need to put in, totally making this up, 30 hours a week. Where do you get that 30 hours from? Are you stealing your weekends from your kids and the rest of your family to start the business? You might have to do that. Is that worth it for you in your own life context? Some people might say no, because the kids grow up fast, and they do. They grow up way too fast. And I don't want to miss them growing up for any business. But then some people are like, well, yeah, I'll use that weekend because I want to better the life of my family. So you got to think about this. When could I farm? And then when could I start? We have to look at our finances, our debt situation, our savings, my job situation. I have to look at infrastructure. What land am I starting with? If somebody just gives me this field that's, 4 feet tall and blackberries and shrubs and rabbit holes, or it's a slope out here in California that's potholed with gophers, and they're like, yeah, you can farm on this land for free, and you're looking at like, good luck. I guess I'm Jeff Lawton greening the desert here. What does that look like versus a more turnkey operation that's nice and flat? It's been farmed on before, or it's somebody's row crop field and they say, yeah, you can have access to these 2 acres over in this corner. What work do you have to do there? Do you have to build some infrastructure, get water in there, get fencing? You might want to start farming next year on March 1st, but then you look at the land and you're like, oh my God, like there's no power, there's no water, there's no fencing. We'll be lucky if we can start by July. Be realistic about that. What are you working with? If you try and fast track and be like, oh, we'll do it. We'll just water with buckets. Yeah, good luck. So when could you start the infrastructure build out? When could you start growing based on that? Step number 10, you're going to start doing market research. What does my market look like locally? I need to know, who am I competing against? Who else is farming out there? What crops are they selling? What works? What doesn't work? What could I grow to fit in here? If I try and grow the same thing as them, how am I differentiating my product? Is there holes in the market, things they're not growing that I could grow to plug in? Are chefs in my area? Do I have those types of restaurants that actually want to buy local produce? Are there grocery stores in my area? Am I in the middle of nowhere, Indiana, and I got to drive 2 hours to get to my market? I got to figure that stuff out sooner than later. And I got to see, is there some demand here? Is there a market? One thing that's amazing about the market gardening community on things like Instagram and Facebook groups is they're willing to answer a lot of questions. So you could find farmers and say in the Indianapolis area and be like, what's this market like? What's pricing like? Is there room? I think a lot of growers are willing to help other growers get into the business. They're not so worried about like, get the hell off my yard. Like, you're competing with me. I don't want to help you. That is not what I've found with this community at all. It's actually an amazing community for the most part that is willing to help and share. So start doing this research about demand, pricing, popular crops, good markets. When is stuff being sold? What are opportunities in markets? So you can start to run economics. You need to be figuring out your financial situation. Where do we need to be financially? And then where do we need to be as a business to meet our financial needs? In order to figure out where we need to be as a business to meet our financial needs, we need to know some stuff about pricing. Obviously, if we're selling stuff for $100 a unit, not realistic. Like, to get to $1,000 a week, we only have to sell 10 units. You're never going to do that in market farming, but I need to know these numbers to say, how much do I have to sell, and could I actually sell that much in my market? We're trying to use this process to take like the dream scenario. You know, maybe one day you dreamed when you were a kid of marrying Justin Bieber or, I don't know, Miley Cyrus or somebody like that. And you're like, wow, it'd be so amazing. And then you're like, hear the stories about how their lives are actually like, and you're like, yeah, I guess it'd be fun for a few nights. But I wouldn't like living with the Biebs or Miley after all. And that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to separate this dream you have in your head from the reality of what it's like and give you solid information in a non-emotional sense to make decisions based off of. Because humans make bad decisions when they're emotional for the most part. That's why gamblers get in more debt. That's why, people under alcohol do things that they regret. They make bad decisions. Let's, in a rational state over a long period of time, get exposed to stuff, learn about stuff, see numbers, and then step back and say, what do we actually want to do? Does this make sense for me? I know I want to do it, but should I do it? That's the big difference. That's where people get into trouble. They follow a want into a business and they just dive in based upon the want. And they never stop and ask if I should or if I really want to. Because I think that's another interesting layer of the onion that we can peel back in another video. A lot of ideas sound amazing right away. And then when you stop and think about it deep down, you're like, I don't know if I really want to do everything that it takes. Like, I would love to own a farm. I would love to live on a farm. This is me really saying that. I don't want to do the day-to-day farm work. I just don't. Like, that's not who I am. So I either got to own it and have somebody else run it and work at it, or I just don't do it. Step number 11, I would say pick a farm style and farmer to emulate and start building systems based on what they do. There's a lot of great farmers out there. Jean-Martin Fortier, Ben Hartman, Eric Schultz, Ray Tyler, Jenny Quiner. I'm leaving out hundreds, thousands. So that's not a slight to anyone. Find somebody that you admire and start building out a system based on what they do, just modified to your area. This isn't a time for you to wing it. Okay? That's why if you go start a McDonald's or a Subway franchise, they're not letting you figure out the menu or how to cook the burgers. It's you buy in and you do it this way. We've figured it out. You're going to do it our way because we know and we know you don't know. And that's no different here. You might come in with these ideas of grandeur of how you're going to revolutionize it. And usually that's how people fail and get overwhelmed and waste money. So start with doing something that somebody else is successful doing first. But don't hold that formula as gospel. It's not etched in stone. You have to realize that. That's why people read things like The Urban Farmer by Curtis Stone and be like, this method sucks. It doesn't work. Well, you can't carbon copy that recipe to 100% of the locations in the world and have it work. Like nothing works that way. But there's a lot of base principles and fundamentals in there that you can definitely apply to your business. So find a farmer that you like and start emulate them. Limit innovation, limit extreme sustainability going forward. Focus on profitability. You want a sustainable business? That means being profitable. That doesn't mean like some eco thing. Like I know people are into like the eco permaculture. I'm going to fix the earth, dude. That's great. I admire it. You're only going to do major earth changes with major profitability. So focus on being profitable first. Number 12, I'm not going to go through all this because there's a lot here. We could do a whole video on this, but I'll leave the notes up there that you can check right there that you can check out. You're going to come up with a quick and dirty business plan, a minimum viable plan. This is not a dissertation. This is not 50 pages. It's a written plan that forces you to think stuff through. What are you going to spend money on? How much money are you going to put in? Like reference these things and have others critique it. Other business owners look at this. They don't have to be farmers. They can be other business owners and look at this plan. Imagine you're going to go take a loan from the bank. I'm not saying you're going to, but imagine you're going to take a loan from the bank. That's like the amount of detail you want on here. What's the business? Where am I selling? What am I selling? How much am I selling it for? What are my costs? What type of equipment am I going to need? How soon can I be profitable? How much will I make a month? Start to think about those things. They're going to be rough estimates. I would estimate everything. I would estimate costs high and revenue low. That's the safe way. Don't go the other way. Oh, I think I'm going to make 10 grand. I'm going to put 20 on here and it's only going to cost me 5 to start up when it really costs 10. No, I'm going to make 7,500 my first year and it's going to cost me 7,500. If you make 10 and only spend 5, that's a win. You want to go that way, not the other way. But we'll definitely do a minimum viable business plan episode in the first year, which has things like goals and all that type of stuff. 13, step 13, if you are single, doesn't apply. Well, maybe you have other stakeholders, a parent, a business partner, a friend who's getting into business with you. Either way, let's discuss this plan with other stakeholders in the family. Out of the hundreds of podcasts I've done, it's sad in a way because there's been some sad stories along the way, I should say, because I've interviewed people and at the time I interviewed them, they're married. And I've interviewed them again, and they're not married anymore. They get divorced. Not saying it's because of the business, but oftentimes finances and things affect a business, a family life. Finances they add stress. Businesses take time away from relationships, away from family. It's like having another kid, a newborn. Not a 10-year-old that can do everything on their own, like a newborn. It's going to require a lot. And sometimes you're going to have to say, honey, like, I know you want to watch The Bachelorette with me tonight, but I got to do work. Oh, no. And that causes division in families. So you're going to discuss this plan with people in your family to make sure everybody's on board. You don't want surprises. Hey, surprise. I spent half our retirement plan on a business, and that business is now failing. You're going to have to work till you're 70 now. Do you still love me? No, I don't. Let's get divorced, get the hell out of here, and sleep on the couch in the meantime. Time commitment, role commitment. I'm going to have to spend this much time on the business. That means that much time is gone from family life. If you're taking that much time away from family life, who's picking up the slack? Who's doing the cleaning? Who's watching the kids? Who's cooking? I'm sure if you're in a household, there's division of labor in every household that has a partnership. If one person has to pull back and focus on a business, somebody else is picking up the slack or the household crumbles. Is the other person okay with that? So think about these things. All this stuff, again, doesn't cost money. And you're trying to do this to prevent future issues from arising. This isn't bulletproofing you, but it's at least making you try and think what could be ahead. We can't see the future, but we should at least know what type of minefield we might be walking through and think about how we could react when we do encounter a mine. This isn't going to make you problem-free. It's not going to prevent fights. It's just saying, we're getting into this. Are we okay? Are we aware? Here's the upside. Here's the downside. Here are the sacrifices. Do we get it? Are we on the same page? Great. I love you. Let's move forward. Step 14, I would advise people to pay a farmer in their area or region to consult on their business plan. Look at the land. Look at what you're doing. Say you go to them with a formed out plan. Here's what I want to do. Find holes in it. I'll pay you. So if you pay him $500, oh, that's a waste of $500, Diego. $500 for a consult? Stupid. It's not. If that $500 saves you a $5,000 mistake or buying the wrong land or doing some stupid thing, it's cheap. I've made dumb moves in my life financially. I wish I could have paid people before making some of these decisions where I could pay them a few $100s to save me a few $1,000s worth of mistakes. Best case, they save you money. Worst case, they say, like, you're on the right track. We can't really help. We can't find any holes. You're doing really good. That's encouragement. You can now proceed forward with that wind in your sails, the advice, the blessing of someone. All right. Number 15 is you're going to start growing, either as a business or a hobby. This is where we take our practice gardening and we scale it up. Okay. We're going to just do. We're going to learn by doing. Get the hell offline. Stop watching YouTube videos. Stop reading books. You can listen to podcasts and stuff in the field for entertainment. But at some point, you just got to do, and you got to commit to, like, this is what I'm doing. Stop trying to innovate. Stop trying to, like, change things. Just do stuff. Stop learning too much. That's a disease people get into. Learning is great, but at some point, you have to do. And excess learning can be confused with progress, and it's not progress. It's actually wasting time. Doing work is actually doing work. Learning is not doing work. Once you get past the learning phase and get into the action phase. Step number 16. Be prepared to adapt and pivot at every point along the way. None of this is figured out. There isn't a foolproof plan, a foolproof system. No one. Figure out whoever your farm god is, Elliot Coleman, Joel Salatin. None of them are going to start a farm without problems. They can't see the future. They can't predict everything. Yes, they have immense amounts of wisdom, but that doesn't make them immune from things that may crop up and things that may change. Markets change, economies change, crops change, weather changes, your life changes. You're going to adapt. Be ready for it. If you want to start a farm, really dive into this list. Take it slow. This is getting married after knowing somebody for a few years, not a few days or after a one-night stand. Getting married after a few years doesn't ensure you're going to be married forever, but after you've been with that person and lived with them for a few years, you kind of know if you work or not. You've been through hard times. You're not just in a honeymoon phase. It's not just all fun and going out to clubs and the things that happen after clubs that are fun. It's bad life experiences. People get sick, people die, people get hurt, things happen, people lose jobs. This process will be a period of growth for you, and it'll provide you a solid foundation of your good business. Doesn't mean you're going to succeed. Nothing does, but it gives you the confidence, the skills to move forward. This takes a long time, Diego. I want the shortcut. Well, guess what? The shortcut's never the best cut. The long cut is always the best road. Overnight success happens over decades, not overnights. The long road to success is the way to success, not the short road. If you have thoughts or feedback on this video, I'd love to hear them. Leave them in the comments below. I'll definitely dive into some of these topics on a future video. If there's one you really want me to dive in, let me know below. Check out the podcast to hear other farmer stories for encouragement, wisdom on my podcast, which you can find on this channel, as well as by searching for Farm Small, Farm Smart, Carrot Cash Flow, and many of the other podcasts that I host. I wish you the best of luck on your farm journey. I hope it works out for you. Take it slow, pump the brakes, be smart about it, and thank you for listening. Until next time, be nice, be thankful, and do the work.